Good afternoon. Welcome once again, and thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Economic Forum. I am your host, YUSUF, and today, as usual, we are joined with our economic professor, Professor ABBASS Mohammed EL-KHAMIS. Do watch us live this and every Monday on our Facebook page at YUSUF TV. Like, share, and leave a comment at the comment section below. Today on the show, we are going to hold discussions on fixing the trade imbalances in Ghana. Can Ghana reduce its import dependency? Stay tuned. And also leave your comment as Professor will take us through the discussion. Professor Abbas, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, YUSUF TV, once again for the opportunity to educate the Ghanaian citizens.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Once again, we have you on the show and we want to talk about the economy, and specifically, we are going to talk about fixing the trade imbalances in Ghana. Looking at the number of our imports, can Ghana reduce its import dependency? That is what we want you to educate us on today. But to begin with, when we talk about trade imbalances or trade imbalance, what specifically does that even mean?
All right, very good question. Yes, and that's where we need to begin understanding what it means to say trade imbalance, and the reason why it matters. If we are to go back to basic understanding of what GDP is about. GDP in its calculation has a component of what we call the net export, which is the trade balances. So it becomes a critical component of how you grow your economy. So GDP, if you look at the basic definition of GDP, it has 5 key variables that we're looking at. We're looking at consumption. All right, to drive the economy forward, you need people to spend money, consumers, household consumption. Then you have the business investment spending also, which is very critical. Then you have the government playing its role in the middle. All right. Then after that is where the net export comes in. So the net export component is what we call trade balances. So the imbalance, the statement that says trade imbalance means that you have more import than you have of export coming in. So that means you have a negative relationship, because all these variables, all these 4 variables that we talked about are positively related to GDP, which is your economy. So your economy will move forward. For the layperson, your economy will move forward when each of these variables has a positive relationship with the economy. So when it comes to trade, we're expecting that you export more to make that relationship positive. Negative is not a good thing for an economy like ours, because I want to talk to Ghanaians, so I'm not going to dwell you with the economics of when is a net export like the one we have a good thing. It's not a good thing for our level of growth. For our level of growth, we have to change the narrative to have a balance of trade, if possible, surplus or balance. If it's not balanced, if it's balanced, then that means you have import equals to export. If it's imbalanced and it's negative like we have, that means we have more import than we have of export. So that's the imbalance you're talking about. So that's what trade imbalance. So why it matters is that it slows your growth as an economy. And the practical interpretation is that when you bring in more goods in, it requires you to have a lot of reserves, meaning you have to have dollars enough to import goods in, which puts pressure on city. And then it slows the economy down, because any good you bring in, if technically can be done inside, that's somebody's job you've given to a foreign country. And that's why it matters. So trade component of GDP, especially in our stage of development, is very critical. That we look at that imbalance that we have where import is greater than export. And that's concerning at this point, because every earnings we're going to make, we have some gains coming in with the city appreciation. We have Gold Board doing its job, bringing us more reserves. And if we're going to spend all this money to import goods, such as everything, including chopsticks, then what we're doing is we are killing the economy.
Yeah,
as Professor. Right now, yes.
Yeah. Professor, what are the major causes of Ghana's heavy reliance on import? Because you did mention that we even import chopsticks and toothpaste. So what are the major causes of Ghana's heavy reliance on imports?
Well, one of the causes, or some of the major causes, is the lack of industrialization that we have in the system.
Okay.
All right. And then the approach that we've taken for raw primary goods export. So until we change that scenario where we can, for the most part, add value to some of the goods that we producing, and try to begin looking at adding value and industrializing, which means we selling finished goods, then we will continue to have these imbalances. So if I should sum it up, I'll give you at least 4 reasons. One of them is the weak industrial base that we have, which is what I was talking about. The lack of industries that can add value to raw materials. Like cocoa exported as beans and not chocolate. Okay. Right? So that is not a good thing. The second one is the overvalued consumer preference, which is the mindset that, the colonial masters have done on us to believe that the foreign good is better. Yeah. So the foreign is better mentality needs to be something we have to walk away from. We have to trust that we can make good goods in Ghana. Made in Ghana goods are equally good. Okay. So without that, now we're spending about 1.2 billion on imported rice, despite local potential. You talk about agriculture. Why are we even importing? Foreign is good. I even get it for certain items like electronics and stuff like that. But if you look at agriculture, we even importing everything in agriculture. And we have the land. If you look at the nations around us, Ghana is the most richest nation among all the countries bordering us. Wow. In terms of the land, the environment, the climate, everything, and then the mineral resource that we have. Yeah. And yet we even import rice. About $1.2 billion spent. You know what 1.2 billion can be done locally if we industrialize? How many people will get jobs? Then we have inadequate infrastructure, poor roads, not leading to farms. Then we don't have reliable power. You heard the news. Ghana in 48 hours might go black. Yeah. If something is not done. So when can we get away from these things? We need the infrastructure, because if we're going to industrialize, we have to ensure that the power is on 24/7, because companies cannot function without power. Yeah. So we have to solve the energy crisis. Is one of the most important thing we need. Energy, roads. The Chinese will tell you if you can build highways, then you've solved half of your problems. And energy, Singapore will tell you energy is key. And education. So high production costs that deter local manufacturing is something we have to solve. So with no roads, no power, production locally is very expensive. Yeah. How do you get your goods to the market? Somebody in the village trying to get the goods in the market. Look at the hustle. I quite remember growing up as a young person in the village where I went to high school. Anytime they're trying to get the goods to Kumasi, it's only 45 minutes if the roads are good. But to get it to Kumasi is a nightmare. The roads are really bad. The transport is not reliable. Road costs are bad simply because the roads are not done. Then we have to look at trade policies too as the fourth reason. Okay. Where the loopholes that allow cheap imports to flood into the market needs to be looked at. Why do we import about $400 million in poultry? That's killing our poultry farms. These are questions we have to ask. And if you know that these things are possible, I want to bring your attention to what happened in Nigeria in 2019. That when we desire to do something and act upon it, it's possible. Nigeria in 2019, they banned the importation of rice. which forced their local production to rise by 60%. We can do this. If you ban rice importation, look at across the border. Burkina banned rice exportation to feed themselves first. Then we can also ban rice importation to grow rice locally. When Nigeria did it, their rice production went up by 60%. What are we waiting for? So these are issues we have to really be worrying about, because we throwing money on the problem. We leaving money on the table. So for food, as it stands right now, we importing 1.8 billion yearly in rice, chicken, and tomato paste. In machinery, equipments, we bringing in cars, phones, equipments at 2.4 billion. And the fuel that we bring in to for gas to power our pumps, we bring in 4.1 billion. So at what point can we say enough is enough? All right, so these are the issues we're failing. Another fact you have to be aware of is we export poverty and we import dependency. So anytime we sell raw cocoa beans to Switzerland, then what end up happening is we buying chocolate at 10 times the price. We mine gold, but we import jewelry from Dubai. We grow mangoes, but we drink South African juice. And what is going to end up happening, because you need dollars to import, is that the city will eventually collapse. And we are the cause of it. Since 2010, city about 80%, because we demand dollars for import. Yes, recent times we enjoying city appreciation, like I said the last time, is because of external reasons. External factors contributed about 80%, only 20% is because of something we did locally in Ghana. The relationship between Bank of Ghana and Ministry of Finance and Gold Board, all of that is 20%. So the inflation we have is going to continue occurring, because if you want to know, 54% of our inflation is as a result of imported goods versus 35% for local goods. So our suffering is an import addiction. We are not a poor nation. We are a nation with poor priorities. So we have to have a vision where Ghana's industrial, dream is to become superpowers of industrialization. We have what it takes to win.
Yeah.
Number one, to look at agriculture, where we grow from raw materials to finished goods. Cocoa, we should stop exporting beans, process 50% locally by 2030. If we set a goal, like by 2030, that we will stop exporting cocoa beans and process just 50% of it.
Okay.
You know how much that will create? Right. $10 billion industry.
Wow.
That's why I'm telling you, it's not rocket science. We just need to act. Just see what's happening in Burkina. We have more potential resources than Burkina ever thought of. But here we are, Burkina is overtaking us. If we don't act in the next 5 years, Burkina is going to be way better than Ghana in everything, because they're doing all the right things. They have tomato processing companies. They have one active. They have two coming up, spread across the nation. Even Ivory Coast is now processing their cocoa. 40% of it is now being processed. And guess what? Just last week, they announced they're going to stop exporting cotton to Bangladesh, who makes the cotton fabric. and sell it to these big corporations. Because in America, we think Bangladesh has good cotton. And now I'm finding out from research that their cotton is actually imported from Ivory Coast. And Ivory Coast is like, no, why are you taking the name that you the best cotton producer in terms of fabric when we are actually the one providing you the raw materials? So we're going to stop too. So everybody is looking within to do something. What is Ghana doing?
Yeah.
Palm oil. Nigeria is importing about 500 million yearly. And we are right next to Nigeria. We can supply them palm oil. We have the products. We don't have to go far to be able to monetize these processes. All right, for rice, we just have to be creative. A little more of the irrigation project that we have. All right, if we can fund the Afifi irrigation project to cut imports by 50% in 5 years, then we're going to see the rewards coming in.
Wow. Yeah.
The same thing with mining.
Professor, Professor, I would like to in of the stuff that and how does this trade? Yeah, Professor, the question was how does the current trade imbalance affect our local businesses?
All right, number one, our businesses are facing the challenge of having to compete and be able to meet the demands of the consumers in Ghana. All right. So when you look at the imbalance on the economy and our local businesses, you have to understand, number one, the local businesses will have to import using high, dollars. And what it translates is that it will eventually, if like I told you, between 2010 to this present time, despite the gains just this month, we've lost, city has lost value about 80%. So that's why I don't want you to look at April as something to jubilate about. The question is, historically, look at the trend.
Okay.
So local businesses that wants to thrive is finding it hard because they're having to stand or change a lot of cities in order to make the dollar equivalent to be able to import goods. And what that means is that they're going to sell the prices very high. And high prices will slow down sales. Low sales means businesses will struggle. Some of them will probably have to close down. So we have to understand that everything comes together when you manage your productivity and try to industrialize as much as you can. And there are job losses that we're dealing with. Number two, which is, if you look back, when, I think when I was 6, there was textile production in Ghana. According to my research, in 1975, the textile jobs in Ghana was about 25,000.
Wow.
Now, just an example of textile, one industry. Now, that industry only employs 3,000 people.
Okay.
Because where do we get that textile? China, South Asian imports. So that industry has collapsed completely. We had tomato manufacturing industry. There were industries in Ejiso. So these are all industries we let go.
Yeah.
So there are jobs, opportunity that the kids are waiting to take advantage, and we haven't been able to do it.
Yeah.
And not only is that not helping us with the jobs, it also bringing a strain on the economy in terms of debt crisis. So if we have right now, we have 30 billion external debt. that is fueled by using loans to finance imports. All right, right now, in order to solve the doomsday that is impending, the government has to go for loan. Example, 4.1 billion of fuel imports in 2023. I don't know what Mohammed is going to get this time to stop the 48-hour shutdown of the electricity. It's going to result into another loan. And you know, the Ghana loan is tricky and not a good loan in the sense that it's real money that we have to take from an institution or a partner. It's not like we're selling bonds to bring the money in. And when you are taking loans like that, it comes with an interest which overburdens the economy. So even when you try to grow, you have this hanging on you that you have to settle this debt as part of your growth strategy in order to move forward. So we're always in a cycle of trying to move. It's like a bicycle wheel. You just keep going on a circle, trying to go forward, but you don't seem to go anywhere simply because you have the debt hanging on you. So if we can understand that the debt crisis we have needs to be approached differently by ensuring that we are industrializing as we're trying to get out of this cycle, then we're never going to go anywhere. So the shocking statistics I want to share with you is that for every 10% rise in imports, it correlates with a 2% drop in industrial employment, according to World Bank. The people that are financing us, they all the ones giving us the statistics. So as we grow 10% rise in imports, it will lead to 2% drop in employment in the industries. So anytime we importing, we have to think we are taking jobs away from our youth. So that's the impact on the economy. That's why you see people like acting so crazy, like somebody. Yeah, go ahead.
Insightful analysis, and I really want to ask this question, but I was wondering, has the government reduced imports?
Has the government what? If you can repeat the question, please.
Yeah, Professor, the question was, has the government of Ghana done enough to promote local production and reduce?
Okay, I heard it. If the government has done enough to improve our local production, the short answer is no, we haven't as people, because we do not have a strategic plan for when do we think we're going to industrialize the nation, right? So I always, if you pay attention to how I've been addressing the question of development, my thing is, what agenda are we pursuing as a nation? Do we have a plan? By when do we think that we can industrialize our nation? By when do we think we will stop rice importation? As a nation, not as a party. All right? As a nation, by when do we think we can achieve this self-sustenance in food? Do we have a goal to achieve that as a nation? And then we have a process in place that will ensure continuity beyond any political tenure. Until we can agree on that, then all we have is everybody touching the problem. We just touching and putting Band-Aid on the wounds. The wound is there, and nobody is actually treating the wound. All right? We saw what happens with the previous administration. One district, one factory. On paper, excellent idea. But what is the follow-through? Can you feel one impact, one factory? One district, one factory in your district? I'm yet to see the impact of that policy in our economy. All right, so there are critical gaps in some of the policies that we have, simply because it was not a unified, agenda of how we're going to move forward. All right. So we need to be guided by a bigger dream that has an all-inclusive approach to how we're going to do this. Like strict local procurement laws. All right. Where Rwanda, for example, mandates 60% government spending on local goods. So if we want to do this, we have to use a Ghana first approach in procurement and drive the agenda of actually doing enough to stop importation, to force the ministries to buy local. We have to drive this, invest in rice, invest in all the things we need, feed the schools with locally made products. Once we're able to process tomatoes, then we will feed the secondary schools or SHS, whatever we call them, with our locally made ingredients. The Government Procurement Act, whatever that is, Ghana First, we make it Ghana First Procurement Act to drive the spending of government up to 60% on local products. But first, we have to produce. Then secondly, we have a strict procurement act to back it up so our local industries are supported. And then we have to reduce the import of certain goods. So until we can do these things, it's not enough, because what we're doing is we're playing politics with the solution, with the problem. Everybody comes and they have their own agenda. It looks good on paper. All right. They do the little bit of what they could do. Wherever they fall short, nobody cares, because the next government is going to come and do something else. Because on paper, you can tell me that one district, one factory is not a good idea. It is a good idea. But who's going to pursue it? But if as a people, as a nation, we have a nationalistic approach to solving these problems, then we know that this is what's going to get us there, then we will pursue it regardless of who's in charge. But the politics, the democracy doesn't allow continuity. If it's not my party, then it doesn't matter. Why do we think like that? We're not unified on a purpose. And that's the problem. All right, so until we can look at things with one eye and solve the problem the way it's supposed to be solved, then I'm sorry, we're going to keep going in circles. All right, because right now, we are still having a nation of diggers in the mining sector instead of industrialists. We barely refine any gold here. And if we should refine our gold, they will add about $5 billion a year. In our economy. Instead of borrowing from IMF, we could add $5 billion a year to our revenue. Things we can use to grow the economy. If you want to doubt that, ask South Africa. Their refinery earns billions from gold bars and jewelry. In bauxite, we can look at 6 billion integrated aluminum project that we have on table that must be happening right now. We have an agenda like this. But who's going to supervise the activation of all of these things?
Yeah.
So until there's so much to be done, but until we're unified on that purpose, nothing will be achieved.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, Professor, what role should the Ghana Investment Production Center play and the Ministry of Trade play in fixing the trade imbalance?
The role of Ministry of Trade and GIPC has to be integrated in the agenda of what is it that we want Ghana to achieve in the next 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
The ministry is the offices of action, okay? But they have to be driven by overarching goal of where Ghana needs to be. So their job, GIPC to be specific, here, for example, offer tax holidays for factories that export like what happened in Vietnam. We can give them a tax break for countries, for businesses that are producing to export. And the most importantly, we have to fix our structural problem of permits for local manufacturers.
Okay.
All right. Until we can streamline, use the digital approach of application for business and permits to be less than 24 hours, like it's happening in Rwanda. Rwanda, your business licenses wouldn't take more than 8 hours. Now they're even anticipating that in Rwanda, in 4 hours, you will have a license for business. When can we get this? Why do we have to go through 10 people to get one single document? So until we start looking at this, and that's why I want us to look at it from the top and then work our way into the ministries, the GIPC, all of them, they have to be guided by a bigger purpose. So who is going to be that body that looks at this with a vision of in 10 years, this is where we need Ghana to look like. A city that, a country that exports more than it imports. So we check the imbalance. In so doing, kids will have jobs. No graduate will be unemployed. And then we don't have to ship any graduate outside like we're doing right now as a policy. I don't know what kind of country even thinks like that. That means you are running away from the problem. The moment you started shipping your talent out, you spend money to give them education. You feed them, their parents feed them, and all of a sudden you take them as a policy to throw them into a different economy. What kind of people are this? So this is where I struggle to understand that policy. That means we're not ready to solve anything. You can simply walk away from the problem. Until when do we begin to talk honestly about these issues as policy leaders? So all these ministries can do so much only if they're guided by a bigger vision and a bigger body of knowing where we want to do. Then we can institute. There's a lot of talent. Solving a problem like fast tracking permits is an easy way. You can give it to any of the tech hubs, and they'll come up with a solution in a minute of how we can do it.
Okay.
All right. For Ministry of Trade, they can impose stiff tariffs on non-essential imports like bottled water, toothpicks. All of these we have to stop importing them. You telling me we can just clean up water and sell it in a bottle in Ghana? Using a better method, ethical methods of cleaning the water. But first, where is the clean water even going to come if the rivers are collapsing because of illegal mining Galamsey? So there's a lot of change. You see, everything you're going to solve, it solves a lot of other things. So before we even get to stop importation, we have major issues to deal with. Galamsey has simply changed hands. We haven't solved Galamsey. And everybody is silent about it. Let's solve Galamsey. It's not a question of transferring the same activity to the next party. No, we're not serious. We have to solve it so we can have clean water. Once we have clean water, then we can bottle it locally. But we can't bottle water if the water source is messed up, it's corrupt.
Professor, you did mention about having a national agenda as a nation. Looking at the nature of our politics today, is that even achievable? Because now we are talking about fixing Galamsey to have a clean water in Ghana. But this has been a challenge for both administrations so far. And the fact of the matter is Ghana loses millions, if not billions of Ghana cedis annually to uncompleted projects. So is having a national agenda, looking at the nature of our politics, achievable in Ghana?
Yeah, having the agenda is not a problem. Having a body that will ensure the agenda is continuous is the problem. Ghana has had so many agendas. We've had 2020 vision, the recent one. Then we have another agenda that came and all of that. And even the body, the economic management body that I'm always proposing, they have some shape of that already existence, but they have an advisory role. Okay. What I'm asking for us to do is to go beyond the advisory role and have under the same clause and act, mandate this body to be independent regardless of who's in power. And that body should have the mandate to manage both our fiscal and monetary policy. Okay. They will work with the Central Bank of Ghana in forming our monetary policy. But it shouldn't be the central bank alone, because when I say the body, that economic body with businesses and technocrats and economists is gonna set an agenda that's forward driven, not inflation targeted driven, like Bank of Ghana is doing right now. So they work with Bank of Ghana to ensure that we are pursuing growth forward, which means GDP is gonna grow, unemployment is gonna reduce, and at the same time, the inflation is gonna be managed. Yeah. So that requires a whole team that will exist regardless of who's in charge. And the composition of this is going to be technocrats, not politicians. Politicians are legislatures. Leave them where they are to manage the daily affairs of the activities that we want to pursue, such as paying the payroll of the government and all of that, and ensuring that this body gets what it needs to be able to move the country forward. And this body, if we're going to pursue democracy, the way it is, we have to change that to enact this policy to ensure that this body exists regardless of who's in charge. Ideally, to even cut the term, not make it coincide with political calendar. These guys who are going to be on that team is going to be here for maybe 6-7 years. So no politician will have an impact on them. You can nominate your representative, the Ministry of Finance, the minister, to be on the board, but he's not going to dominate the call. The call is going to be a body, like the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, the government has his appointee, but he doesn't call the shots. That's why Mr. Trump is frustrated, because he can't get his way in dealing with the economy the way he wants to deal with it. Because the other side of the pressure are technocrats. They are not politically aligned with anyone. They just want to do the right thing for the country. Exactly. So why can't we, as a democracy, don't look at those models and be like, okay, this model we have, one party takes all, winner takes all approach is not working. Let's have an independent body that manages itself to only drive the economy forward. So our fiscal monetary policy, everything goes through them, and ensuring that we move in our growth strategy is in their hands. They will guide the ministries in terms of what they expect the ministries to do. And trust me, if we do this, we're solving two problems. Number one, we will solve our growth problem. Number two, we will politically stabilize. Because until we do this, the political stability is not guaranteed. The youth are hungry. Everybody is looking at Burkina. Ghana is going to have the 25th. Ghana is going to have a march in support of Ibrahim Traore. I don't know if the politicians are seeing the signals, but this is a signal that's telling you that for the first time in Africa, the people that we always accuse are bad, the coup is bad, is showing that coup can be good. Are the politicians taking the lesson from that? So if we don't come up with a different model, we don't have to have coup, but we can come up with a different model where we will avoid that, because we have a body that's seeing our growth going forward. Everybody can see it. We have a national agenda, billboards everywhere. This is where Ghana is going the next 25 years. There's going to be infrastructure over here. Every city you go, there's a plan for every city. The moment you drive into that city, welcome to whatever city, Techima has a billboard of what Techima is going to look like the next 20 years. You go to Obuasi, welcome to Obuasi, big vision on the board. Are we bold to put that on the board to say this is where we want to go? And that can only be achieved if we have an all-inclusive approach. It's not a political party. But what we have right now is we have a leader that means well. And that's why I'm impressing on him to actually be the leader for this agenda of bringing the people together and saying, look, the party thing is not working. If we want to avoid the political uprising like it happened in Burkina, because the youth are looking and waiting to see what we can do, then let's have people come together and enshrine this in the Constitution to ensure this body is going to be here the next 10 years driving our agenda.
Yeah.
And the only way you can dissolve them is to ask the people if they don't want the body to exist in referendum. Once you insert it into Constitution, if NDC is not here, MPP cannot dissolve that team because it's enshrined in the Constitution. So we need to amend that act. That's what I want to see, because until then, I don't care what NDC does. It's not going to lead into sustainable growth. I'm not saying they're not going to do anything. They will do whatever they have to do, but it's only going to give us a little bit. Because economics, especially economic growth, the way we are in deep crisis. I don't know if people don't realize that. You keep adding to graduate unemployment. And there's no opportunities coming up to meet the number of graduates that we are adding to the pool of unemployed.
Yeah.
So we're not doing anything to solve the gap. And then you think you're doing something. No, we have to be realistic about the situation.
Yeah.
So if we have an honest conversation, I anticipate Mohammed, with his personality and the love that he has amongst the nation, can be the one to unify us on this. And let us stop lying to ourselves. Yes, NDC mean well, they have agenda, all of that, but for how long would that last? Can they ensure that when they are the power, anything they started will be going on? The answer is no. They will leave and their policies will be thrown out. And then we're going to start over. So it's a cycle. We don't want to be in the cycle of not moving. We're always going in circles. It's just a circle bike. We just keep going and going and we're not moving. We're stagnant.
Yeah.
So I want us to be realistic. Just don't lie to yourself. 68 years, how many years of democracy we've pursued it? It doesn't let any. It's our democracy. We will change it the way we deem fit. And my suggestion is, let's have a body similar to the Federal Reserve in the US. Give them the mandate under the law. Ensure that nobody can touch them without going to ask the people of Ghana. You don't want this. It's not working for you. We can then dismantle that through referendum. Otherwise, they will exist by law, by power to prosecute when projects are not done. They will be able to call and put people in jail when they don't do their work. Because you take the contract and you don't, they will pursue you and put you in jail. And then we would send the signal that we're serious for the first time. Yeah. Because they're not politically aligned, they don't care who gets the contract. When you get the contract and you don't do it, guess what? You find yourself in jail. Yeah. And the president, you get a freedom because nobody can say it's under your presidency that people are jailed. These people have no allegiance to any party. That's what we need. Yeah.
Professor, thank you very much for this insightful conversation. And speaking of how we can have a sustainable development, we know that this current administration came up with a committee, something called, I think, ORA, which was initially made to investigate corrupt cases. And I think the previous administration had over 100 members of parliament and ministers, I would say, sorry. And this administration has currently, I think, 58 ministers. Professor, a little about our ministerial appointment. Ghana as a nation, do we need over 100 ministers to run this nation?
It's interesting. Realistic response, no. I live in Texas. It's about the size of Ghana, the second largest state in the US.
Wow.
We don't have 10 ministers. We don't need that. You have the congressman, you have the senator, and then you have the local authorities. If you remember, I told you I served on the economic board when we started. And the county, we define our economics.
Wow.
You decentralize. You don't need a minister everywhere. You decentralize. Let the people find what is bothering them, and then let them decide how they move forward. So as a county, when I go to these meetings, we're looking at problems locally. All we need is the funds coming down, right? We pay property tax. Like me, I pay property tax because I own a property. So I pay property tax, and that's what funds our local projects. All right? And then the state it gets the what do you call it, the taxes from businesses and payroll to also fund their projects. And according to a Ghanaian I spoke, who has been living here for quite some time, he said when he moved here some 30, 40 years ago, Ghana has the motorway that we have, the Tema motorway.
Yeah.
When he moved here, Ghana had Tema motorway, and Texas doesn't have one single highway. 40 years ago. So what happens now? Now we have one of the highest, I think the second most super highways, high-rise highways. I think either in the world, I think a second most high-rise highways. Our highways are going in the sky highways. We have the most. In the United States, we dominate. That's Texas for you.
Wow.
They don't need a lot of ministers. You just need to have people that can work. Leadership that works. You have a dream, you have somebody to work on it, because it doesn't take much to figure it out. So ministry appointments is not necessary. The goal is, can we get people to manage their own affairs? Why do we need all these people? It's not necessary. That's what breeds corruption, because the monies are going in too many channels. Everybody have access to some funds because of their position. That means you can manage all of these handles going left and right. Channels are just too many. Streamline it, key sectors. And that's why the body will do. When we have a body like that, we can eliminate so many ministries, because they would take a lot of the things away and have the directors and the administrators to do their work. Not create another portfolio to be paying people left and right and giving them access to funds, only to end up being corrupt and putting them in their pocket. And nothing is done on projects. But if we are project driven by existence of a body like I'm suggesting, then we know we're getting somewhere. There's a dream, there's a project, and that project will be done. It's as simple as that. I sit on these boards with people, and you see how people dream and how it comes into a reality. Every day, everywhere you turn in our county, there's roads somewhere being expanded. It's our money. You see your money working. So even when you pay, you don't cry, because you can see it functioning. There's always something going on. Behind my house, there was no road 4 years ago when I moved into this property. Now it's like a cosmopolitan city. Everything has come up. Roads expanded, filling stations, businesses, all of that cropping up in your face. That's development. That's growth. And there's no politics to that. It's locally centralized. So you don't need a lot of offices to manage this. You just need to have the people managing themselves. We have a local office, like where I went to do the passport I was telling you. It's a local office. I don't have to call anyone to say I need a passport for my kids. I just search up local passport office in my county, zip code, address, 25 minutes away. Bring your kids. I made an appointment. I went, done. It's a local office, central, decentralized. They would do the work and send it to the Department of State, which is like sending it to Accra. And in 4 weeks, the passport will come back.
Wow.
I don't have to travel to Accra, like, for example. I don't have to go to Washington to get my passport.
Yeah.
You decentralize the services. Let the people decide what's best for them.
Yeah.
We do our local elections to choose our leaders. We don't need the government to come all the way down. It's too much for the government to worry about. That's why we pushing everything to the central government. We have to decentralize. When we decentralize and let the people determine where the pains are, imagine if Obuasi can decide what they want for their city with the mining resource that they have.
Yeah.
You will see the agenda that's going to come out. Let them decide.
Yeah.
Let them decide and just support them. If it's funds, support them with the funds. In them, they will have the leadership that are dreaming and thinking the way I'm thinking. They will drive their own agenda. But you can sit in a cry and try to solve their problem. How much do you know? All right, so that's where it's lacking. We don't need this many people. No. No. We don't need that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And on the contrary, you notice that even the Obuasi where gold is being mined, they don't necessarily have good roads and sanitation and social amenities. They don't necessarily have the good ones. So we hope the government is paying close attention to developing our key sectors, and specifically where we are having our raw materials in their natural form. Professor, thank you very much for this insightful conversation. And once again, there's a question from a friend. There's a direct question. There's a direct message. The person is asking that how do we encourage Ghanaians to patronize the made in Ghana goods? How do we encourage Ghanaians to buy most of the made in Ghana goods here in Ghana?
It's the leadership that has to sell the agenda, the made in Ghana agenda. If you launch, for example, one simple suggestion I'm going to make. If we take this as a national agenda to drive made in Ghana products, then the next thing you can do is to do what we call the made in Ghana certification for quality assurance. Because the reason why we have this foreign desire for goods outside of Ghana is because of pursue quality. This is all a mindset that they have on us, that everything from abroad is better than a local good. So we have to change minds. And the leadership needs to change that. And that's what I was telling you. We don't have to go far. Look at how Burkina, the guy has changed their mind to believing that they're good enough to produce everything. When Elon Musk went to Burkina to get a deal of Tesla, and he was trying to sell it to Traoré told him, we already have factories producing Tesla, so you're not electric vehicles, so you're not doing anything special for us. We don't need you. We already ahead of the game. These are all local folks producing the electric vehicle. I forgot the name. The electric vehicle that Burkina is producing in 2 years, electric vehicle. So it's telling you that we have a latent, potential individuals in Ghana right now waiting to explode. Give them the opportunity.
Professor, I would like to chip in with this very quick. You are speaking of potentials in Ghana. I think, is the government really paying attention to our potentials here at home? Because we noticed that this man, Osofo Kantanka, he does amazing stuff, but I don't see the government giving him leverages or subsidies, or even encouraging people to buy from him. The government is actually buying all of these V8 and other vehicles abroad from India and other countries. Meanwhile, we have someone like him with great potential who also produces some of these cars right here at home. So is the government really paying attention to the potentials we have here at home?
No, they will tell you yes, but the reality is they're not, because they're still stuck in the colonial mindset where we still think the white man is better than us. They're brainwashed, and they've been successful even up to our leaders. Our leaders don't see us good enough to do our own thing. If they see us good enough, then Safo Kantanka should have produced electric vehicle for Burkina first, before even Burkina figured it out. This guy has been producing cars for how many years? Why is he being ignored? And yet we feel comfortable bringing V8s, Toyota, Japanese cars, Mercedes. They're driving all these luxury cars. Who told you Kentucky can do it, given the resources and the support? How many kids would have been employed? How many people? You would have seen wonders in the cars that we're going to make. Look at China. BWD is way better than Tesla. I drove Tesla. I see what it does. But BWD, I look at the video. I was like, this is not even close. So until we can appreciate ourselves, and that's the problem. In anything we do, as it stands right now, we only looking for the West to lead us. No, we're good enough. We have what it takes. We just have to try to believe ourselves. Change that mindset. We have to get away from the white man is always right, is better than me attitude. And that's where it starts. Until you can deculturalize the colonization mindset, then we're not going to go anywhere, because our procurement is showing you that we don't value our own. We buying everything outside. Not even from Nigeria. Nigeria has been producing Peugeot for how many years? Why don't we import a Peugeot, we call it, from Nigeria? Why are we bringing Toyota V8? Next door, Nigeria can do it. Electric vehicle, why don't we go to Burkina and bring it, since we failed to act? At least they're doing it. So these are where we need to start having a real conversation. South Africa is waiting to explode. As a nation, we have to find a way to incorporate these, ingenuity of the citizens that we have. We have talent. I'm telling you, the moment we say we're going to activate some of these things, you're going to be amazed with how many people have been sitting on dreams and aspirations and ideas that they will help these factories make. He told Elon Musk, I have everything. These guys are locally, they thinking, they producing the cars. What are you going to do? Now he's talking about scale. He said, no, we don't need you to scale. We're good by ourselves. We have Africa. We will sell to Africa. We don't need you. When can we tell the white man that we don't need you? Can Ghana do that? When he has his hands in your pocket. So that's where we need to start thinking. We have to believe we're good enough.
Okay. Professor, I have a question again. What role can the youth and the entrepreneurs play in reducing import dependency?
The youth, the role of the youth, they just have to be encouraged to have startups. All right. Not everybody is made to work for anyone. Sometimes you have an idea. All right. Like turning cassava into gluten-free flour for export, like gari or any form of that, or even just a flour. All right. There's market abroad. But is there a startup entrepreneurship programs that encourages them to go into agriculture? All right. So the youth are ready if we can give them incentives to go into agriculture. Let agriculture be fun. Let's not put this stigma that agriculture is for illiterates. That we have to get away from it.
That is very important.
All right. They have to make agriculture attractive by the incentives they're going to put in those processes. All right. In value addition chain, agriculture needs to be number one in trying to attract the youth to be creative about how you can turn something into a finished product. If you put the incentive, you're going to see how many people are going to be pursuing agriculture entrepreneurship. And in so doing, we will solve our needs of food sufficiency within 2 to 3 years. I guarantee you, we can do this. Because the youth are waiting. They have nothing to do. Make it attractive. Give them startups, funding. Vet their project, fund it, and give them the support. to see them through all the way to the finish line.
Wow.
You have to have those processes. Then we have the tech. The hub is waiting. The technology is crazy. Can we have a city full of, people in the technology space? Tech hubs, we need to create those. Where these guys will be creating apps and stuff like that to connect the farmers that we're going to get in step 1 to the markets. So there's going to be apps. I know we did one app to sell fish and we were all excited. The vice president was making, that's a JSS project for American kids. Let's do multiple of that. We don't need to, these are all easy solutions that we can do, but we need to be strategic. So the youth, what I want them to do is to start protesting bad trade policies. They have to do Ghana First protests. Now they're doing something to support Traore, which is good, but they have to look within themselves and insist that we switch from producing internationally and start protesting towards certain imports. We have to do Ghana First. Ghana First, let's produce that so that we can have somebody like a 24-year-old in Kumasi that will export shea butter to Europe.
Yeah.
No middleman. With an app, with a solution, he will be able to do that. Why don't we encourage that? We have cashews. These are all Indians coming to take our cashews away. Why are we allowing all these things? We can replace the Indians with our own indigenous people, but we have to support them with funds to go into cashew production and take the bottlenecks of export and allow them to export within the chain of production with an export company that is locally indigenous set up. So all the gains will stay in. Not the Indians taking our money away. Now they even go beyond cashew. Now they're going into gold. What is happening in Ghana? Why are we allowing this? So that's where we need to go.
Yeah. Professor, it's been an amazing and incredible conversation so far. And looking at our time, I would like us to switch to our local dialect and educate our people and also elaborate more on what we discussed today to them, and also find a way to solve our day-to-day problems in Ghana based on our economy. Jama'a masu sauraron mu, wato yau mun tattauna ne da Professor Abbas Mohammed, yadda muka saba a cikin Ghana Walkiya TV ya muna bayanai da dama game da yadda muke yawan wato importation mu yawa. To yau muna so Professor ya muna bayani a takaice yadda za mu yi mu samu mafita, ya za mu rage, domin ka duba kasan ba gwamnati kawai ke import ba, hatta mu ma abinda muke sawa da abinda muke ci anya dunka a baya cikin zango. Talented fashion designer ta dunka a baya the same a baya 300 cedis, but mutum zai sai ya prefer ya sai wanda aka imported one, let's say 1000 cedis. Professor muna bayani ya za ya sake wanga mindset na ko ya za ya samu fita.
To kamar yanda kai bayani a takaice masu sauraron mu mun tattauna ne kan zancen waton kasuwanci na gari, sannan kuma mu da kanmu yanda muke yin lamuranmu. So shi zancen kasuwanci ko sai da sayarwa ko kuma kawo kaya waje, waton abin da ake ce da import ko kuma sayar da kaya waje, which is export, yana cikin ababa hudun da gari ke duba su kawo ci gaba. So abin da yau muka tattauna shi ake ce da trade imbalance, wanda ke nufi cewa wato kenan ababen da muke kawowa cikin garin ya fi wanda muke sayarwa waje. Kuma abin da ya kamata mu lura ne lokacin da za mu kawo kaya duka, inda kayan waje ne muna ni shi dolan nan, sannan mu sayo kayan da shigo cikin gari. To in yau shekaran jiya mun yi rawan cewa gwamnati ya yi kokari dola ya sauka kaza. Abin da ya kamata mu tuna ne tun yau shekara 14 kenan zuwa yau, shi sidin nan da kuke kallo ya rasa karfin shi kamar 80%. me yasa saboda yawancin kayan da muke kawowa da seedin ake sayowa. In an sawo a kawo mu yi amfani da shi. So wato kenan in yau mun ji daɗi ko muna rawan cewa CD ya hau, gobe nan da mun tashi neman kayan da za mu ci mu yi amfani da shi, neman dalan ya bar CD kuma ya fadi. So abin da ya kamata mu kiyaye kenan, wato kenan wangan nan ya zama wani matsala ne da ya kamata mu kawo mai mafita. So cikin tunanin da muke ko tattaunawa da muka yi muka ce to, in dai muna son mu samu abin nan ya juye, inda zai kai ababen da muke sayarwa waje ya fi yawa. In ka duba kayan da muke kawowa, shi dai mu sake tunaninmu kan cewa number one, ba kowane kayan waje ne ya fi kayan gida ba. Sannan mu san kuma in ka sai abin gida ka taimaka da kanka ne, don in ka sai abin da aka yi shi gida, wato kenan shi wanda ka sai abin shi nan ka taimaka mai wajen samun business shi, kasuwan shi ya je gaba, wato aikin shi ya ci gaba, shi kuma cikin wannan aiki zai ya haya wani ko zai ya daukan wani wajen aiki, kaga kai kuma ka taimaka garin mu duka muna zuwa gaba ke. To amma in ba mun sake tunaninmu kan cewa mu ma muna da waɗanda kwakwarun mutanen da za su yi abin da ya fi na turai ko na waje ba mu yi mu ci gaba as people. Sannan gwamnati kuma ya kamata ya shigo ya taimaka yanda yara matasa za su samu karfin bude wayansu ayyuka na abin nan da zai kawo mana amfani, mu yi wayansu ababen da muke kawo wanga duka, kamar yau toothpicking ga abin fidda hakorin ga wanga wani abu don Allah zai ci cikin kawo yin shi bai da wuya. Me yasa a ce Ghana yau ba mu yi wannan duka saboda ba taimako wajen hama da masu son su start wani aiki ko business. So ya kamata gwamnati ya yi nashi, mu kuma mu sake tunanin mu kan cewa abin nan fa kaunan kasa shine ka sai abin da aka yi cikin kasan ka, shine kaunan kasan gaske inda an yi shi da kyau. So gwamnati yana ba da tambari kan cewa in dai ka sai kaya wajen wannan kamfani, to ka tabbatar kamar kayan nan mun duba mun yi bincike, kayan nan na da kyau. To cikin wayannan ababa gwamnati zai yi. Sannan mu da kanmu kuma mu sake tunaninmu, sannan mu tambayi shugabanninmu yaushe ne za mu iya kawo da kanmu sauki, mu rage wanga abin nan yawan kawo kaya, shara ne na wayansu gari ma muke kawo an kun lura. Ya kamata ce yanzu mun bar cin sharan mutane. So duka dai tambayu ne da ya kamata ana tattaunawa don ku iya tambayar shugabanninku me muke yi kan wannan. Dan lokaci kowane kaya ka sayi garin nan, in dai waje ya fito ka taimaka da kamfanin waje ne. Amma inda gida ka sai kayan, gida aka yi ka sai kayan ka taimaka da kamfanin gida. So tunanin da ya kamata mu yi kenan, insha Allah.
Mashallah, Professor Mungodi Susei. Professor, it's been a nice conversation with you on this topic. Thank you very much for your time and for elaborating more on this topic specifically. It says a lot, and it shows how leadership and politicians are not paying attention to some of these situations. Professor, what will be your final submission or your message to the government or the body, the trade ministry and the finance ministry? What will be your message to them based on this conversation?
I think my final submission will be around nationalistic mindset.
Okay.
Let's understand that we need to have a comprehensive blueprint to break away from import addiction. That we must understand this as, economic independence that we needed. And if we need to have economic independence, then we must be able to at least not be import dependent and grow our own, feed ourselves. I always want to go back to suggestion that we feed ourselves, and we must encourage production, value addition activities across all sectors. So my simple statement will be, if we continue begging for loans such as MF to feed our import addiction, in order to build, produce, and export, then we're never going to go anywhere. Why? Because the tools are here.
Okay.
And there is cost for inaction. I just gave you an example of what can possibly happen. The cost of inaction. We need a future where our grandchildren will possibly import toothpicks while sitting on gold mines.
Yeah.
So we have to industrialize now.
Yeah.
We must do that.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor. We do really appreciate your valuable insight on this program. As usual, we thank you very much on YUSUF TV. Do like, share, and also leave a comment as you watch this video, because this has been a very insightful conversation. And Professor Abbas Mohammed, thank you very much. Until next time, we hope to have you once again on the show.
Beloved brothers and sisters, we thank you for your audience. We thank you for your patience, for your tolerance. And I hope you've all heard what our honorable professor has dilated upon Ghana's trade imbalance. Fixing Ghana's trade imbalance, excuse me. And I hope you've educated yourself on his comment and on his analysis. You know, it is important to be following this type of program because it gives us more light on our economic situation in this country. You heard our professor who spoke about local production and manufacturing. He also spoke about how we should be patronizing Ghana's made. For example, why should a country like Ghana import toothpaste when in the whole of Western region we have bamboo in abundance? As an independent nation, we should be doing everything possible to manufacture our own products and to patronize our own products. For example, Safu Kantanka. This man, God has blessed us to have somebody like this. He's manufacturing a lot of stuffs. But why is it necessary for us to go and buy V8 outside the country when we have somebody like Safu Kantanka? So all about Professor Abbas' analysis on economic forum is to bring us back to what we have. A person who gives you a diameter of his knowledge will control the circumference of your activities. So beautiful brothers, it's important to pay ears, to give ears to our professor who has an in-depth knowledge on economics. Look at our brother Traore in Burkina Faso. Our land is so fertile, more than Burkina Faso. It's a desert land. Compare our environment, our vegetation is green. And the land is so fertile that even if you spit, I tell you something will grow. Why should a country like Ghana have to import, is it export? Import tomatoes from Burkina Faso, when we can produce it here and then finish our product here. Finally, you heard our professor who spoke intensively about how we should put value on our products. We should not be exporting things from outside. We have the capability to produce it here. So without much ado, I thank you so much for your audience. I want to encourage you to continue following our program, Economic Forum, and I believe if you make it a point every week to listen to this program entitled Economic Forum being hosted by our brother, Professor Abbas Mohammed, I bet you Ghana will not be the same. And I hope all our politicians will come to realization that God has given us somebody like him, our professor, so that they listen to what he has for us. He explained his parts, the knowledge that God has helped him to acquire. He's not so biased to leave it for himself. He is sharing it with us. So our own is to give ears and listen to what he has to say. And then if possible, we should continue sending all these videos that he's producing to all those who need it, including our politicians. So please, anytime you come on board, listen and then share. and make sure that we utilize what he say, more especially our politicians. We have to even make sure that we send this message to reach our president and ministers of state so that they will also know that something is happening at Walkia TV by our brother Professor Abbas Mohammed. Thank you so much. I greet you in peace whilst I go into the local dialect to also benefit our people who don't understand the English language. But without much ado, I encourage you to continue following this program, the Economic Forum, being hosted by our brother Professor Abbas Mohammed, every week, inshallah. Yakwana mother da mata, ina yi muku gaisuwa ta addinin musulunci. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Muna fatan kuna lafiya, kuma wannan gaisuwan ta islama ne wanda muke mu kowa muna maka fatan kana lafiya, kana tare da zaman lafiya. To dalili na magana cikin Hausa shine bayanan da dan uwanmu Professor Abbas Mohammed ya faɗa a cikin Turanci. Ina ga yana da kyau nema idan gutsura ma ɗan uwana waɗanda suke jin yaren Hausa saboda su ma su samu fahimtar abin da ke tafiya. Wannan ɗan uwan namu Professor Abbas Mohammed yana zane ne a ƙasar America, wanda kowane sati yana zuwa yana karantar da mu akan tattalin arzikin ƙasar mu. Shi sanya yayi maganganu masu dama masu muhimmanci da muke fatan kowane sati insha Allah idan ya gama bayanansa za mu zo mu dan gutsura da ƴan uwanmu su ma su ji a cikin Hausa me ya faɗa. To a takaice ne yayi bayanin yanda Allah ya muna baiwa da ƙasa wanda take da albarkan gaske, wanda idan ka toho miyau a ƙasa ma to wani abu zai shuko, saboda yanda Allah ya yi mu ƙasar Ghana albarka, babu abin da ake shukawa da ba zai tsiro ba. To ya za a yi a ce hatta idan mutum ya ci abinci dan wannan dan tsintsiyar nan da ake kulkule hakori da shi, wanda sai mun yi sako daga kasar waje an kawo muna. To ina amfanin bambu da muke da shi? Idan ka shiga cikin western region zaka tadda bambu kaman ba a so. Idan ka je kasar kamar su Indonesia, kamar su Malaysia, kamar su Philippines, wato zaka tadda wannan bambu din ana keken hawa ana yi da bambu, ana yin kujeran zama da bambu, hatta abinci, katun can abinci, cokali na can abinci ana yi da bambu, ana gidaje da bambu. Amma ga shi nan muna da su da yawa, ba ma bukatan su ma, in dai ba in za a gini a ɗebo a sa cikin gine-gine da muke yi ba, shi kaɗai muke da shi. Amma ya aka ce muna da bambu ko ina cikin wasu rijin suna nan zube ba a komi da shi, amma wai har muna order abinda in aka ci abinci ake kwalkwale haƙori da shi ma sai mun saya daga kasar waje. Ina amfanin wannan babu da muke da shi? In muka duba makota kasar Burkina Faso suna yin tumatiri, kuma har muna sayan tumatiri a wajen su. Shin ina amfanin wannan kasar da Allah ya bamu mai albarka, wanda ba abinda ba shukawa da bai tsoro ba? Yanzu mu da mu sayi tumatiri a wajen su, ko su za su yi a wajen mu? To amma mun shagali, mun kwanta, mun huta, muna ganin kiwuya abin da ya kamata mu shuka a kasar mu ma sai mun dauko a wani wuri. Shi sanya dan uwanmu yayi bayanai masu daman gaske yanda gwamnati zai sa ido cewa kasar nan ayi kokari a tallafa ma manoma. Wani ababen da muke saya a kasar waje muna da daman da zamu yi shi a nan. Idan mun yi noma misali, maimakon mu sai da kayan noman waje, abin da muka je da shi za a sarrafa a kawo a saida muna nan, muna iya sarrafawa da kanmu. Shi zamana idan an zo ba kai amfanin gonan da a saya ba, abinda muka sarrafa muka sa shi ya zama finished product, shi za a saya, kun ga zamu rika samun kudaden shiga. Isa jama'a a yi haƙuri a ci gaba da bibiyan wannan shafi na Economic Forum, wanda dan uwanmu Professor Abbas yake karantar da mu kowane sati. Insha Allah ina da imanin gaske cewa za mu karu sosai, kuma duk wanda ya saurara ya yi kokari shi ma ya saka wa'anda ba su je ba su ma su samu albarkacin ji da yayi, shi ma yayi sharing da inda bature ke cewa yayi sharing, kuma a rika turawa har ya kai ga manyan mu na yan siyasa su ma su fahimci cewa nan Walkiya TV muna da mu ma wanda Allah ya bamu, wanda ke karantar da mu, su ma abin ya shiga cikin kwakwalwarsu ya zama na su ma idan sun ji za su yi amfani da abin da aka faɗa a sashi a yi aiki da shi. Kuma muna fatan cewa insha Allah idan ana sauraron wannan program din jama'a za su karu, kasar za ta karu, mu dukan amfana. Yasa muna gayyatan ku kowane sati insha Allah a rika bibiyan wannan forum din mai albarka, in aka ji kuma a rika sharing. Ina muku fatan alkhairi, shi Allah ya kama sati na gaba. Duk wanda ke da tambaya yana iya yi ya turo muna insha Allah, sati ya kai dan uwan mu zai bada ansan tambayoyi da aka yi, ko a turanci ne ko a Hausa ne insha Allah. Ina muku gaisuwa ta addinin musulunci, muna fatan Allah ya kai mu sabon sati lafiya. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.